Wagner on Steph. And fading, firing, hitting again.
You can't count a champion out, and the Golden State Warriors proved that. It's only been 3 years since the Warriors last won an NBA championship, but there were already people counting them out early during the 2024-25 season. They lost Klay Thompson to free agency in 2024. Meanwhile, injuries also ravaged a team that looked good early on because of its depth, but eventually struggled with age and injuries.
He is injured right now, and he got a foul.
More importantly, they couldn't find a good secondary star behind Stephen Curry. But before that, let's rewind things a bit. In 2015, the world saw the birth of a new powerhouse in the NBA when the Golden State Warriors shocked the world with its dominance. That team was destroying everyone in the regular season before winning the championship. Boosted by head coach Steve Kerr's system and led by Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, the Warriors used a good combination of spacing, three-point shooting, and ball movement to forge a new dynasty that changed the NBA landscape and turned it into the league it is today. It wasn't a one-time thing because the Warriors went on to win an NBA record of 73 wins in 2016. If that wasn't enough, they acquired Kevin Durant that year and went on to form the greatest super team in the history of the NBA. The Warriors were utterly dominant during their championship runs in 2017 and 2018. Injuries, however, prevented the Warriors from winning the 2019 title. They lost Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant in the 2019 finals, leading to 2 straight dark seasons for the squad. KD, meanwhile, decided to start fresh in Brooklyn. Thompson made a heroic return during the 2021-22 season, with the Warriors sporting a new roster. They still had their core trio of Curry, Thompson, and Green. However, the other supporting members were different. They had a young Jordan Poole who could take over the scoring responsibilities when he was hot.
Launches. Oh! Money!
Andrew Wiggins, meanwhile, rose to become the team's best two-way wing because of his strong defense and timely scoring. This new version of the Warriors had an inspiring run during the 2022 playoffs, allowing this team to clinch the 2022 NBA championship and cap off a 4th title in only a span of 8 seasons. But everything started falling for that team, and it wasn't something that happened in an instant. We have to go all the way back to 2018 to understand this downfall, and the catalyst was Draymond Green. Green was the team's emotional leader and their defensive anchor. Without Draymond, this team wouldn't have won all those championships because he did the dirty work and gave this team the toughness and physicality it needed. But he often went overboard with his antics, becoming a bit too physical and emotional, and the Warriors often had to pay the price. In 2018, he and KD had a heated argument when he took the final shot of the game instead of giving it to Durant. Green brought up the notion that KD was going to leave them as a free agent in 2019. True enough, Durant did. And a lot of people thought that Green's words only pushed KD to leave the team. It didn't end there. After finishing the 2019-20 season with the worst record in the league, the Warriors got the 2nd overall pick in 2020.
The 2nd pick goes to the Golden State Warriors.
They were 1 pick short of drafting a game-changing talent like Anthony Edwards, who was chosen 1st overall that year. However, they settled with the guy they thought was the 2nd best player, James Wiseman. Despite his history of injuries, Wiseman had the mobility and athleticism the Warriors needed from the center spot. It turned out that this was a big mistake. LaMelo Ball, who won the 2021 Rookie of the Year, was still available but was chosen 3rd overall by the Charlotte Hornets. We also know that Tyrese Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey turned into All-Stars. Wiseman, meanwhile, couldn't stay healthy. Even when he was healthy, he struggled to fit into the Warriors' system. The struggles eventually led to a trade where the Warriors basically got nothing in return for Wiseman. But the Warriors could live with all the blunders and mistakes at that point because they were winning. That 2022 title was the ultimate cure for their mistakes. But more mistakes and problems started piling up, and we have to go back to Draymond.
And Curry's got the board. Green gets tied up. And a technical has been assessed.
After the successful 2022 title run, where both Poole and Wiggins played well, the Warriors extended them to hefty contracts. Poole, on the other hand, let the money get into his head when he confronted Green, who was yet to get his own lucrative contract extension. An angry Draymond punched Poole on the jaw, leading to a poor locker room situation within the organization. Poole, meanwhile, lost the desire to play well, not only because of the situation with Draymond, but also because he was now making a ton of money. The failure to repeat in 2023 forced the team to let Poole go. They traded him to the Washington Wizards, ending Poole's short run in the Bay Area. And before that fiasco with Green, he was supposed to be one of the future cornerstones of that roster. That situation with Green and Poole showed that the Warriors were losing control over this team. It was a sinking ship, and the sad part was that the captain was the first to leave on a lifeboat. Bob Myers was the architect of this dynasty. He wasn't getting the same accolades and attention that Stephen Curry and Steve Kerr were getting, but he was the man who made all the moves from behind the scenes. Myers had a hand in every important draft trade and signing that the Warriors made. But in 2023, he resigned from his position because he knew it was the best time to move on. The Warriors, meanwhile, were a dying franchise on life support.
Kyrie, Green guarding, back to Kyrie. Now here comes the double team. Kyrie dribbles away from him, pulls up late in the clock.
The problems compounded in the 2023-24 season. Green's on-court issues affected the way this team was playing. If he wasn't kicking people in the groin, he was choking Rudy Gobert or smacking Yusuf Nurkic in the face. Green's antics led to suspensions that affected the team's performance while serving as an unnecessary distraction. But that was only half of the team's problems. Klay Thompson, who was in the final year of his contract, was forcing his way into another big extension. After 2 major injuries, he wasn't the same old Klay who could score 60 points on 11 dribbles. He was shooting blanks because he was trying to force the issue. When he was shooting the Warriors out of a game, Kerr took him off of the floor. But Klay's ego was hurt, and he couldn't accept he was no longer the same guy he used to be. That affected team chemistry in the worst possible way. Steve Kerr, meanwhile, wasn't digging deep into his bench. Even when guys like Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody were playing well, Kerr would rather play his starters. Fans and critics alike thought that Kerr was stunting the growth of his younger players just to keep his veterans happy. And things simply piled up. Stephen Curry was still doing Stephen Curry things by shooting the lights out and adding more numbers to his Hall of Fame legacy. But if you're Curry, you can only do so much when your second best player has a bruised ego and your defensive enforcer can't even manage his emotions. Your coach won't even let the bench players play because he didn't want to hurt his starters' feelings. The Warriors didn't even make the playoffs in 2024, just 2 seasons after winning their last championship. And the offseason marked the end of a once great dynasty. Klay Thompson, who couldn't get the contract extension he wanted from the Warriors, moved on to the Dallas Mavericks. Without Klay, the Warriors tried to fill in his spot by signing Buddy Hield and other role-playing wings. The Dubs started the 2024-25 season well because of their depth.
Another clutch game for the Dubs. Curry, 3. Good!
But when injuries started piling up and Hield cooled down, they were in danger of missing the playoffs and even the play-in tournament. Curry's age and injury only made matters worse because he wasn't playing the usual brand of basketball we were used to. And it was all because the team couldn't find a good secondary player behind him. Jonathan Kuminga's shot selection was still a work in progress. Green's shooting improved, but he was never a good scorer. Hield proved why he's been hopping from one team to another. And Wiggins, though playing well, wasn't really the type who could take over a game. So, in what was probably a push-button in case of emergency move for the Warriors, they traded Wiggins and a few key pieces for the Miami Heat's Jimmy Butler, who was unhappy with his contract situation in South Beach. Since the Butler trade, the Warriors found new life because they've been winning. At 35, Butler isn't someone you'd call the future of the franchise because he's probably got 2 to 3 good years left in him. He's more like a last-ditch effort. He wasn't even putting up star numbers in Miami before the trade. But what he does bring to the table is a secondary presence. Unlike Wiggins, who isn't expected to create his own shots or set up teammates for good opportunities, Butler can break down defenses with his isolation play.
Throw it to Butler.
His presence alone has been enough to alleviate pressure on Curry's shoulders. The GOAT shooter was allowed to play off the ball more, knowing Jimmy Buckets is a good creator. Jimmy also brings more toughness alongside Green. While some fans thought 2 alpha egos can't coexist in one locker room, both Butler and Green are winners. They've been getting along quite well because they're mature enough to understand they need to work together to win. Basically, the surge that the Warriors experienced since the Butler trade is more like a final hurrah for Curry and the other older players on the roster. They need to make one more push for a championship, especially because this team's best player isn't getting any younger. Steph is already 37, and it's actually a miracle of modern medicine that he's still playing at an elite level at that age. Dynasties may be meant to fall, but that doesn't mean the Warriors won't go down without a fight.